The King's Avatar, Chapter 1333, Overlapping Ghost Boundaries. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1333, Overlapping Ghost Boundaries. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. Go, Yingji. We'll follow your pace. In Tiny Herb's team chat, Lu Xiaobi sent this message. As a longtime teammate of Gao Yingji's, he could sense the other players' confusion and panic. If he's still not confident enough, then let's help him establish confidence. Aren't we used to supporting Vich? No matter who it is, we'll go along with him. Go. Xu Bin understood Lu Xiaobi's intentions and also encouraged Gao Yingji. At the same time, their healer player Yuan Baiqing was controlling Aedo, preparing to give aid to the whole team. With the encouragement of his teammates, Gao Yingji's emotions gradually steadied. He was carrying everyone's hopes. How could he let them down? He had to carry Tiny Herb's future. Go. Gao Yingji also sent a message in the chat, displaying his state of mind to his teammates, and after that, the witch country once again took flight. Target, Little Cold Hands. Gao Yingji decided to resume the objective that he hadn't been able to complete earlier. At the moment, they had the advantage of numbers, so there should be many openings through which they could attack Little Cold Hands. If they managed to kill the opponent's healer, the game was set. But he had barely taken a few steps when he saw that Little Cold Hands was already retreating. Yishu's Lord Grimm smoothly intercepted Kind Tree's path of attack. Charge past. Gao Yingji sent in the team channel. There were 3 of them, so even if he got tangled with Lord Grimm, there were still 2 others who could force their way toward Little Cold Hands. Charge. Triple slash. Xu Bin's Angelica and Lu Xiaobi's Flying Sword, assisting this new generation Tiny Herb which from the left and right rushed forward together. Boom, boom, boom. From a long range, Su Muchung's Dancing Rain had found an angle from which she could fire. With a tri-shot anti-tank missile, 3 shots fired toward the 3 of them. They each dodged with their own techniques. Gao Yingji's Kind Tree twisted in the air. Lu Xiaobi's Flying Sword changed direction on the second slash of his triple slash. Xu Bin's Angelica simply used a heroic leap, aiming to land in Lord Grimm's direction. But then, boom, boom, boom. Another tri-shot anti-tank missile came, this time from Lord Grimm's Myriad Manifestations umbrella at a much closer distance. In the end, they burst into 3 explosions. All 3 Tiny Herb players were hit. The methods they used to dodge Su Muchung's initial attack had all been predicted by Yishu. Kind Tree and Flying Sword were directly sent tumbling by the shock waves of the explosion, but Angelica's heroic leap had priority. Plus, he had the stronger armor of a knight, so even though he too was hit, his body was only slightly buffeted and his offensive wasn't diminished at all. But just when he was about to land, brilliant white flames suddenly surrounded his body, and the priority of heroic leap vanished. A sacred fire from Little Cold Hands had silenced him. Unbelievable. After sealing Valkyria, he now seals Angelica. And these predictive attacks were both made under conditions of high-speed movement. We didn't even see the sacred fire burning on the ground before it took effect. And Wen Yi has truly taken the precision of this skill to the limit. Li Yibo exclaimed in shock. He too was surprised that he would save such unrestrained praise to give to Wen Yi, of all players. After all, at the beginning, this was the guy whose mere ability to exist in the professional scene had been questioned. Happy ignored the doubts of the outside world and insisted on keeping Wen Yi as their main healer. Are they finally reaping the rewards? Li Yibo continued to exclaim. To the side, Ruan Cheng's expression darkened. As long as there was something negative said about Happy, he would always take part, and he was extreme with his criticism. With Wen Yi, for example, not only did he criticize Wen Yi for having such a low skill level, he used this as a lens through which to criticize the judgment and management of Team Happy as a whole. But now, Happy's support of Wen Yi brought them this kind of reward. Of course, this was the strongest retaliation toward his type of criticisms. Ruan Cheng had opened his mouth, prepared to say something, but because Li Yibo had dragged the topic here, he had no way of adding anything. He could only shut his mouth, depressed. Sky Strike. The myriad manifestations umbrella had already become a spear in Lord Grimm's hands, thrusting directly toward the falling Angelica. At the same time, another round of fire exploded upon his body. Clearly, Dancing Rain was still helping Yi Shu output damage from afar. But the combo didn't last too long, because Gao Yingji and Lu Xiaobi were already back. Boom. Lord Grimm used one last falling flower palm to shove Angelica toward Kind Tree. Gao Yingji immediately wanted to dodge, but a laser rifle slammed into Angelica's body again. Instantly, Angelica's body accelerated from the force of the impact and was in front of Kind Tree in the blink of an eye. Gao Yingji hadn't anticipated this and couldn't react fast enough. Angelica slammed into him, and the two became tangled together. Even though the damage from this wouldn't be too high, this interrupted Tiny Herb's offensive and put them in an unbearably weak position. Did Tiny Herb's offensive trio have no way of dealing with these two from Happy? At this time, the sixth players of both sides finally arrived. Tiny Herb, Liang Feng, Berserker Black Bamboo, Happy, Chao Yifan, Ghostblade 1-inch Ash. We can't let them set up ghost boundaries. This was Gao Yingji's judgment at this moment, but on Happy's side, Lord Grimm was already covering 1-inch Ash as the Ghostblade prepared to cast the first ghost boundary. Dancing Rain opened fire with Gatling gun, sending a storm of bullets flying their way. The four from Tiny Herb scattered, and Angelica used the cover of his weapon sighing wall to take the direct path. But they were still too slow. By the time the close-range fighters arrived, the light gathering on 1-inch Ash's blade was released. Ice Boundary. The boundary landed right beneath the feet of Lord Grimm and 1-inch Ash. The close-range fighters who had planned to stop him immediately had to retreat. Yishu's Lord Grimm used this opening to complete a cast, another ghost boundary, a sword boundary that used Blade Aura as a buff. Dancing Rain and Little Cold Hands entered the range of the sword and ice boundaries. Under the protection of these ghost boundaries, Happy's four players steadily began to advance their position. Ghost boundaries appeared on the map one after another. In Tiny Herb's roster, Xu Bin, Lu Xiaobi, and Liang Feng were all close-range classes, and after the ghost boundaries forced them out of range, their choices of attack were extremely limited. Gao Yingji's Kind Tree could still attack the target from outside the range of the ghost boundaries, but his attacks alone were far from enough to stop Happy's step-by-step advancement. Retreat for now. Gao Yingji made this decision. The biggest limitation of ghost boundaries was that they couldn't move. Happy had established a strong formation, so even though Tiny Herb had an extra person, they couldn't brute force their way through. They'd wanted to try this, relying on their healer, but they had nothing to show for their efforts. Boom, boom. Su Mucheng sent the Tiny Herb players on their way with a few cannon shots. Tiny Herb's players dodged, feeling depressed, when all of a sudden, Happy's Little Cold Hands suddenly raised his weapon Holy Contract. There was a flash of brilliant light, so bright that it would attract everyone's attention. It was a hypnosis attack. Edo. Tiny Herb's cleric instantly stopped in his tracks. His body swayed, clearly already asleep. And at this moment, Lord Grimm's two hands opened outward, and a gust of chi flowed outward. Cloud-grasping fist. When they saw this skill, the faces of the Tiny Herb players turned ashen. Happy's formation needed the support of the ghost boundaries, so they couldn't move quickly. Yuan Bai Ching's Edo had been far back in a secure location the whole time. Because of this, Tiny Herb hadn't worried too much about protecting him, because in their view, there was no way Happy could charge out of the ghost boundaries, and the long-range firepower of Dancing Rain or Lord Grimm alone didn't pose a great threat. But now, Happy actually pulled Edo into their formation. Tiny Herb had neglected the protection of Aedo, and it was now too late to interrupt the cloud-grasping fist. There was no way they could retreat now and come back later. Disregarding everything else, all of the Tiny Herb players turned around and rushed back to rescue Aedo. But Happy was prepared for this. 1-inch Ash continued to lay down ghost boundaries without rest, connecting into a chain of obstacles that hampered their movements. Just like that, Aedo was pulled by Lord Grimm into Happy's formation, and the various ghost boundaries he passed through caused him to suffer all sorts of damage and status effects. As soon as he landed, Lord Grimm didn't hold back in attacking him. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Dancing Rain used her firepower to continue to take care of everyone else, and Chao Yifan's 1-inch Ash maintained the completeness of the overlapping ghost boundaries. How did things end up like this? Gao Yingji was in a daze. It was 5 against 4, they clearly had the advantage of numbers, so why had they been countered at every step? How had they ended up in this situation, where their healer was stolen away and they had no way of rescuing him? If only Captain were still here, this battle never would have become such a mess. In the end, it's because I'm useless, isn't it? Too useless. Tiny Herb's future. Everyone's hope. How in the world could I ever carry that? Ah! Gao Yingji gave a shout of anger in his heart. Kind Tree, a character who could still attack from the edge of the ghost boundaries, now arrived there. Dark boundary? Ice boundary? Gao Yingji studied the ghost boundaries on the ground. The status effects from these were too strong. No matter what, he couldn't enter those regions. Plague boundary. That would only decrease his defense. He could take that, but that was a trap. Gao Yingji carefully observed the positions of Happy's players. If he charged through the plague boundary, then all of the opponent's attacks could easily focus upon him. Under the defense-reducing effect of the plague boundary, the damage and effects from the attacks would all be magnified. If he tried a charge like that, he would definitely be forced back, and just the smallest mistake could result in his own death. Gao Yingji felt a rare clarity of mind. All of these thoughts flashed through his mind, and he made his judgments. He couldn't enter any of these areas sealed by the ghost boundaries. Then all that was left was Silence Boundary, a region that would lock all skills. Anyone else would skip this option without a second thought. But I'm a witch. Even with ordinary attacks, I can go in and cause some chaos. If I can interrupt one of Yifan's ghost boundaries, then my teammates can seize the opportunity to counterattack. It'll be a bit hard, but I have to try. Kind Tree, under everyone's shocked gazes, stepped into the silence boundary. His skills were instantly sealed, but his footsteps didn't halt. Was there an open area where he could stand? Was there an opening caused by switching skills that he could seize? Gao Yingji concentrated everything he had on his surroundings. His Kind Tree charged toward 1-inch Ash. He was going to interrupt the opponent's array of ghost boundaries. Behind you. But at this moment, he received a warning from his teammate. He immediately tried to roll and dodge, but blood was already flying from Kind Tree's neck. Then, someone was already lifting him, and carelessly tossing him to the side. Lord Grimm's silhouette had already used another movement skill to return and resume his offense against Aedo. Just like that, Kind Tree was tossed into the middle of the dark boundary. The entire world went black and chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1334 Decisive. Audio source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1334, Decisive. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Is this the end? Gao Yingji felt the dejection swelling in his heart as his camera view turned into a screen of darkness. No. But another sound rose in his heart, because he felt that he heard that sentence once again. Shoulder the future of Tiny Herb. This isn't over yet. The dark boundary didn't cause any damage, only the loss of vision. The position he'd been in when he hit the ground, the direction he was facing. Kind Tree clambered to his feet, turned his body slightly to face the direct center of the ghost boundary, and charged through. What? Everyone was shocked and had to double-check that that dark boundary hadn't already faded. No, the dark boundary was still there, and there was no way the blind effect would fade so quickly. In other words, Gao Yingji's vision was still nothing but darkness, but he could still make such accurate controls. He had done all of this based on his memory. What incredible instinct and intuition! Kind Tree flew into the air, riding atop his broom, Morning Dew. At this moment, there was no way for him to make many precise controls. He could only use a few sweeping skills to try and disrupt the opponent. Broom tornado. Morning Dew swung through the air, Kind Tree spun and a tornado whipped up. To win this match, he was using everything he had, even if his skills had been sealed by the silence boundary, even if the dark boundary stole away his vision, he still refused to give up. But the audience couldn't bear to watch any longer. They couldn't bear to see Gao Yingji work so hard only to fail to accomplish anything in the end. Dancing Rain had already lifted her cannon. She aimed right at Kind Tree, and shot a laser rifle right at him. Boom! The mid-air Kind Tree was instantly sent flying by this laser rifle. In the end, it still wasn't enough. Gao Yingji let out a sigh. This was far from an opponent he could defeat with his eyes closed. The moment that Kind Tree flew out of the area affected by the dark boundary, he recovered his sight. Gao Yingji immediately adjusted his position. Then, he saw a Weto trapped by countless overlapping ghost boundaries, with all sorts of status effects and damage stacking on top of him. Light and shadow intertwined. The occasional flashes were all black in color. 1-inch Ashes Tachi was raised in the air. Those ghost boundaries lying upon the ground seemed to hear some sort of call, and the power of the phantom ghost became shifting and restless. Ghost Feast. In this instant, all of the phantom power exploded. The power flew in chaotic patterns through the air, searching for targets within the range of the ghost boundaries. Which tiny herb player would dare advance at this moment? But in the very center of the boundaries, where they all overlapped, Tiny Herb's cleric was being devoured by all of the phantom power. Boom! Another satellite beam fell from the sky. Along with the waving claws and dancing fangs of the phantom god's power, it swallowed a Weto whole, leaving not a scrap of clothing. Tiny Herb's cleric fell. In that moment, for countless people, this match was decided. Tiny Herb's stadium was silent. Only the loyal happy fans sitting in the away team audience area were jumping and singing, welcoming the crazy victory that was just about to arrive. This is really unbelievable. Quote, this adjective appeared again and again in the commentary of today's match. And this time, seeing Happy kill Tiny Herb's healer, Pan Lin once again used this adjective to describe the situation. Even though Tiny Herb had become somewhat disorganized and depressed when Happy had killed Wang Jiexe earlier, they still had the absolute numbers advantage, and so most people still favored Tiny Herb. Ruin Cheng gritted his teeth as he waited for Tiny Herb to kill Happy, so that he could pick apart Happy's faults one by one. But now, it looked like there was no need. Tiny Herb's cleric was killed. This one move was simply too decisive. Now, there probably wouldn't be any more earth-shaking miracles, would there? There wouldn't be. Enough shocking events had already happened today. After this, Tiny Herb's 4 attackers attempted to kill Little Cold Hands, but 1-inch Ash's ghost boundaries quickly gave Little Cold Hands the best protection. When Yi was able to stand at a secure position and focus on healing, then Lord Grimm, fighting on the front lines, could be that much more reckless in his attacks. No reversals, no comebacks. The battle ended here. Happy won their away game against Tiny Herb, with a final score of 8-2. There was too much that needed to be digested, and so the stadium was a bit subdued. The players from both teams walked out of the competitor booths and met in the middle, just like they had before the team competition. But now that victory had been determined, one side could laugh heartily, while the other side could only taste bitterness. Wang Jiexe, the first one killed in this team competition, calmly looked at the players of this team standing before him. Yi Xu. Counting from when Wang Jiexe had first entered the alliance, the two of them had already competed with each other for a full 7 seasons. If only speaking of their results during that time. Then Yi Xu, who had never appeared in a season finals after season 4, seemed a bit inferior to Wang Jiexe, who had played in the finals 3 times and won 2 of them. Over the regular seasons, they had met 14 times, each with his share of wins and losses. In the playoffs of Season 7, the two teams met in the first round, and Tiny Herb sent home the excellent era that Yi Xu led. It was after that battle that everyone started screaming, believing that Yi Xu's era was over for good. But for some reason, Wang Jiexe felt that he hadn't truly defeated this opponent. This wasn't only because of the achievements and trophies that both sides had accumulated, this was a feeling closer to the battlefield. The battle strength that Excellent Era had displayed during the playoffs match was so fragmented that even Wang Jiexe, as their opponent, almost couldn't bear to watch. That battle became the last time the two of them fought. During the regular season of Season 8, before Tiny Herb and Excellent Era could meet, Yi Xu announced his retirement. When he first heard the news, Wang Jiexe couldn't understand it at all. The outside world believed this and that. But as his opponent, Wang Jiexe only knew one thing: Yi Xu's competitive condition was far from the point where he would need to retire. Some internal conflict must have occurred within Team Excellent Era. But all of this became unimportant with Yi Xu's retirement. Wang Jiexe's job was to lead Tiny Herb on a road of endless victory. And now, he had returned. Wang Jiexe didn't know what was up with Yi Xu becoming Yi Xu, but either way it wasn't important. This player had used that 1.5 years of time to pull together this team standing here now, and then once again defeated Wang Jiexe in battle. When was the last time I lost to this guy? Wang Jiexe couldn't remember anymore. What he could remember in clear detail was Season 3, when he'd won Best Rookie. He was the so-called king of rookies, but that was nothing in front of God Yi Xu. The world had likened his magician style to the sight of heavenly horses crossing the sky, but in front of Yi Xu there were none of the stunning effects of magic. One autumn leaf waved that famed silver weapon Evil Annihilation, using that battle mage style that was everywhere in the player guides, and beat his witch bloody. The excellent era that he had raised was truly invincible in that era. This time, do you plan to carry such a team once again? Congratulations, Wang Jiexe said, extending his right hand toward Yi Xu. Thank you. Yi Xu also extended his hand, and they shook. Next time, we will win, said Wang Jiexe. Oh, you guys. Yi Xu laughed, and looked at the line of Tiny Herb players arranged before him. Having lost the match, they were of course in low spirits. Gao Yingji especially seemed painfully upset. His head hung low, and the teardrops were clear to see as they fell from his eyes. Maybe if they treated you as a role model, and not a crutch. When Yi Xu said this sentence, he had already moved past, and was shaking hands with the person standing next to Wang Jiexe. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Role model? Crutch. Wang Jiexe was dazed. Even when Fang Rui walked in front of him and extended his hand, he didn't react until Zhu Bin reminded him. He hurriedly recovered and shook hands. Is he saying that I've been working too hard all this time? But when you were in excellent era, weren't you also giving your all to carry the team on your shoulders? Wang Jiexi watched Yi Xiu's retreating silhouette, which now arrived in front of Gao Yingji at the end of the line. Gao Yingji's head was bowed. He saw that someone had walked in front of him, but he didn't lift his head, and only extended his right hand. You did well. Yi Xiu took the initiative to speak with him. But awareness and determination are far from enough. Who doesn't have those things? As soon as he finished speaking, he was already gone. But Gao Yingji, surprised, finally lifted his head to look at him. Behind Yi Xiu, the rest of the happy players walked by, one by one, shaking his hand, until the very last happy member, Qiao Yivan. In over a year's time, young players like them could grow a lot, whether in appearance or character. Both of them had grown taller, and the childishness had faded from their faces. Gao Yingji's face was still streaked with tears, but now that he was facing his old friend, he finally reacted and hurriedly wiped his face. Qiao Yivan didn't laugh at him. He pulled some tissues out of his pocket and offered them to Gao Yingji. Gao Yingji took them, but he didn't use them to wipe his tears. Yivan, you're really amazing now, Gao Yingji said. So are you, still as genius as ever, being able to play even in the dark boundary, Qiao Yivan said. But what use is that? We still lost. Gao Yingji's sadness was still clear when he said this. Keep working hard, Qiao Yivan said. Yes. Next time I'll win for sure, Gao Yingji said. Alright, Qiao Yivan smiled, not fussing over how the statement, I'll win for sure, had the implication, you'll lose for sure. With that, the match came to a close. In the post-match press conference, both sides expressed extremely high praise toward their opponent's performance. In Tiny Heb's press conference, Captain Wang Jiexi frequently revealed a pensive expression while answering questions, and their genius player Gao Yingji, after this failure, expressed a strength and determination that he had never shown before. Ruin Cheng had been so prepared to sarcastically mock Happy after they'd lost this battle, but in the end, he didn't even show up to Happy's press conference. But soon, the television broadcasting station received countless calls from viewers, all expressing that they'd rather hear the commentary of someone whose skill wasn't high enough than the commentary of someone as biased as Ruin Cheng. At the conclusion of round 27, Happy's away game victory against Tiny Herb was one of the more unexpected results. But aside from this, there was another surprise. Team Windhowl, after stumbling in so many battles, finally found their footing in this match, an 8-1-2 against Team Blue Rain, The King's Avatar. Chapter 1335. Don't worry about the details. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1335. Don't worry about the details. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Not even Windhowl's fans felt any hope for them, and in a match against a powerhouse like Blue Rain, not even 70% of the tickets had been sold. Many fans gathered outside of the stadium, refusing to go inside and watch and thus expressing their displeasure for Windhowl's recent performance. Yet it was on this night that Windhowl won an individual competition, won the group arena, and then won the team competition. They beat the current number 2, Blue Rain, 8-2. There are many factors that can influence a match. Doing the right thing at the right time is the most efficient way to win a match. Windhowl's offense was strong tonight, and our defense wasn't up to par. Blue Rain's captain, Yu Wenzu, commented at the post-match press conference. The reporters in the audience had a very clear understanding of this match. Team Windhowl had fallen, their fans cooled, but there was one aspect that was indisputably admirable about them. No matter how terrible their performance was, their desire for victory burned as brightly as ever. Yu Wenzu's comment was a good summary. If you say that victory required doing the right thing at the right time, then the previous wind howl could never find that right time to do that right thing. And this time? In this team competition, Wind Howl had used an extremely crude playstyle. After their starting lineup had loaded into the map, they immediately switched their healer out for their sixth player, creating an all-DPS formation. Then, they had attacked Blue Rain, forcing their members to fight 1v1. This sort of strategy was extremely rare in the high-end pro circle. Once the 1v1 arrangement was completed by Wind Howl, Blue Rain's team was ripped asunder. Apart from their healer, Yu Wenzu wasn't good at 1v1s either, making things far more difficult for Blue Rain. In the end, they were unable to regroup and support each other efficiently, losing the team competition. The right thing at the right time. The reporters digested this comment from Yu Wenzu. It seemed like words of courtesy spoken post-match, but the meaning behind the words were clear. There was no need to comment any further. As for the stars of the day, Team Wind Howl. This long-awaited victory against such a powerhouse finally let them raise their heads, standing tall and confident at the press conference. The competition is just beginning, they intoned solemnly. Sure. The reporters looked to the rankings after 27 rounds. Wind Howl was still just outside of the playoffs, though they were only 8 points away from the 8th-ranked team. The problem was that none of the top 8 seemed to be falling behind. The one who was one place above Wind Howl was 301 Degrees, who had been rising up ever since the winter transfer window. This round, they had defeated Heavenly Swords 8-2 in their away game, scoring their 10th consecutive win. The life-risking strike assassination didn't appear in this match, but that meant that 301 Degrees didn't just have that one method of winning. They would judge the situation for the method necessary to obtain victory. Their captain Yang Kong wasn't so stiff as to stubbornly stick to his new life-risking style no matter what. He could still use the warrior-like playstyle that he favored before, charging at the head of his team if the team so required. 301 Degrees wasn't planning on relying on this singular strategy. Everyone had realized that by now. Team 301 Degrees had risen through the ranks, and the one they had knocked out of the top 8 was Wind Howl. Now Wind Howl had become the pursuers and the reporters checked the schedule. A good show was soon to come. Round 28 was a face-off between these two teams. Wind Howl's home game would be against 301 Degrees. This seemed quite like a fight to the death. There were still 11 rounds in the regular season. 8 points of difference wasn't a small gap, but it wasn't a very big gap either. If you wanted to turn the tables in one round, then this face-off was a chance. If they won with a 9-1, then they'd be even. 10-0 and they'd overtake them. However, Wind Howl, having already disappointed everyone so much, couldn't win back everyone's faith and admiration with just a single victory against Blue Rain, especially compared to 301 Degrees with their 10 consecutive wins. However, Team Wind Howl's members had an indomitable will to fight against the tides. The more the outside world didn't believe, the more focused they were on the match. On March 28, the day before round 28 of the Pro League, the teams generally would choose such a time to announce the lineup they were to use in the match the following day. "What? You're putting me in?" For Team Happy, when their lineup was announced, the loudest voice came from the computer on their meeting table. The last time Luoji had played in an official match since coming to Happy was all the way back during the Challengers League. His contributions to Team Happy were more like that of a R&D member, rather than a player. However, Luoji was doubtlessly a registered player of Happy's. Though he usually couldn't stay with the team because of his studies, when match day came, no matter home or away game, Luoji would rush over to the stadium and meet with everyone. Though he had never been on the stage, he had the chance to watch up close and personal. Luoji was no longer the noob he once was. His judgment, knowledge, were far from average. As for skill, he naturally knew his own level. In the current Happy, not even Wei Chen had much of a chance to be fielded. For himself, he was satisfied with just sitting at the sidelines. Maybe, after honing himself for another year and a half, he might get some chance to play. That was what Luoji thought. He never would have expected that Yi Shu planned to field him in this crucial time as the season approached its end. "Do you want to play an individual match or group arena?" Yi Shu asked. I. Luoji stuttered, speechless. It was shocking enough that he was getting a chance to play, never mind being able to choose the match for himself. This was probably the encouragement and reward he was getting for this season. There are still 11 rounds. It's time you gained some real battle experience, Yi Shu decided. Luoji was one of the elite students of an institution for higher education. His IQ was high, that was undebatable, and he soon figured out the logic in Yi Shu's words. From his view, with only 11 rounds left, if Happy had a massive lead like Samsara, then it was fine to let some newbie take the stage and gain experience in some relatively unimportant matches as the regular season came to a close. However, Happy was currently 6th with a total of 178 points, 4 points AEAD of number 700 Blossoms and 12 AEAD of number 8 301 Degrees. Compared to number 9's Wind Howl, they did have quite a lead with 20 points AEAD. However, even if Happy didn't drop out of the top 8, falling to 8th place wasn't good either. If the current situation was any clue, Samsara's lead was certain to continue. In accordance with the playoffs rules, the 8th-ranked team would be up against the number 1 team, Samsara, in the first round. Everyone was naturally trying to avoid such a strong opponent. If it became unavoidable, like in the finals, then they'll just go all out and hope for the best. WuxRWorldAudio.com. Happy wasn't at the point where they could relax and train their newbies. However, if Yi Shu fielded him now, that seemed to mean that Yi Shu was placing importance on his use later and not throwing him some unimportant matches to gain experience. Yet Yi Shu had said that he had to gain real battle experience in these 11 rounds. Could it be that Yi Shu was planning on having him play in the playoffs? Though he was sitting down, Luoji felt his legs go weak. After garnering some experience in 11 rounds, he'd have to contribute to that vicious competition where a single mistake could mean a year's worth of work wasted, called the playoffs. Is that really all right? Luoji didn't voice any of what he had thought, merely asking the question that was going through his mind. You've been working hard for a long time. It's time to experience what being on the stage is like, Yi Shu replied. But my skill. Luoji hesitated. Your skill is already at the point where you need real battle experience to improve. It'll tell you what to give up and what to strengthen, how to make decisions. You have to develop such an awareness yourself. If I just tell you, there's little use. Yi Shu explained. You can tell me first, I'll focus on it, Luoji said. Don't worry about the details. Yi Shu intoned. Just say it, I'll definitely be able to look at things clearer if you do, Luoji reassured. I already said it. Just don't worry about the details. Luoji was dumbfounded for a moment. He had thought Yi Shu had been telling him to not worry about the detail of listen to it first and then focus on it. Yes, see, there's not much use, no, Yi Shu said. This harsh reality had Luoji struck speechless. These words really weren't much use to him. Or, rather, pay more attention to the details you need to. Ye Zhu added. Pay attention to what details are important. Luo Ji's IQ was impressive, able to easily find the implications. Yup, Ye Zhu confirmed. I'll pay close attention to it. Luo Ji nodded and didn't say much more. This was because he realized this really was something you could only develop through going through the battles yourself. Then he considered his current situation. Paying attention to details was his habit and style, and it was because of this that he could create those incredibly detailed guides. However, when 1v1ing, the more you paid attention to, the more you had to worry about. In addition, summoners already had very complex mechanics, so he often floundered and flailed when it came to it. Ye Zhu's advice of paying attention to what details could be ignored and what should be considered wasn't telling him to stop paying attention to detail, but to find the details that would benefit him the most when it came to defeating his opponent and then utilize them effectively. If he could do this, then he probably wouldn't be all over the place when it came to controlling his character. Luo Ji knew that he was no hand-speed expert. He couldn't control a bunch of summons under complex battle situations. Choosing between these details really was something he needed to master to improve from his current level. Ye Zhu had probably noticed that he had reached such a level and arranged for him to improve through actual matches. However, there were only 11 rounds left. Even if he played one match per round and even gained some experience from the team competitors, was it enough to improve and allow him to perform well in the playoffs? This question lingered in Luo Ji's heart, and Chen Guo had doubts about it, too. Will Luo Ji be alright? Chen Guo asked Ye Zhu after the meeting was over. Don't forget, he has a high IQ, Ye Zhu replied. End chapter.